Okay, let's rock and roll. Do we need a beer yet? It's too early.
Never.
All right, let's rock and roll.
This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sean Preston.
Welcome, everybody, to the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today, we have a great neighbor on, somebody who's definitely got a lot of patience with me right now, and that happens to be James Bazely of Gregor Homes. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing, Sean?
Nothing like forgetting to hit the record button and going on a really nice conversation for like a solid 10 minutes only to find out we have to record.
I enjoyed it immensely. Our private little conversation was great.
Well, hey, I mean, we're really getting a chance to get to know each other. Let's just do it again. Nothing like doing something twice, eh?
Exactly.
I feel like I'm doing what my dad does to me all the time. You know, he's that type. I love my dad. Dad, if you're listening to this, I hope you're not going to give me too much shit for this one. But, you know, every time we're doing something, it just seems to happen that way where we have to do it twice. You know, you put together that barbecue, you put the wrong screw in the wrong end and something's backwards and then the top doesn't fit. So you got to take the whole thing apart.
That's what happens when you scan the instructions. Read the instructions first, because the last line tells you don't forget to, and sure as you know what, you've forgotten to.
I'm a big instruction guy, and every single time, sometimes my dad, he'll say, nah, we don't need those. Let's just put it together. And I'm like, can you give me 5 minutes to read this? Like, I'd like to just do this once, please. That'd be great.
Exactly.
All right. So let's dive into this and talk a little bit more about your business. What is it you guys do?
It's Gregor Homes, Gregor Homes Limited, based in Barrie, serving Simcoe County. Are up to the end of the 2000s, we were predominantly a high-end subdivision builder, and in the economic downturn, we really had to refocus and not be so reliant on subdivision building, and so we sort of changed our focus to custom homes, renovations, and additions, and today that's our sweet spot. That's what we do, and that's what we specialize in.
And so because you said it before, we'll try and reenact what we had there because we had it going on. What is it about the residential homes that makes it really fun for you guys after you guys made that pivot?
So in subdivision homes, you're basically the building on spec and then selling to some purchaser through a real estate agent or a salesperson, and not really having the interaction that we enjoy today with the consumers that we deal with when you're building custom or doing renovations, because our relationship starts way ahead of time through the planning stage, the budgeting stage, the design, and then the execution. So it's a completely different world for us, you know, dealing directly with the consumer and for lack of better terms, holding their hand the whole way through to the completion of the job. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a completely different world. It's a different business model altogether.
And you also mentioned, we talk about this, the B word, the budget word, and the M word for money. And sometimes there's a lot of guiding on your side of the fence with consumers. And sometimes they think that this is what they want, but in reality, it's actually something different. And there's a bit of an art there.
Yeah, I think, we spoke about this. I mean, anyone that's in sales or in their own business, as we are, you can't be afraid of the money word or the budget word. And I think novices to the business will shy away from that. But I think it's one of the most important conversations you can have right off the get-go with a potential customer. You know, understanding what we call their pain, what their needs or their wants are, but what do they really need? And what do they have to spend or what do they want to spend? And if you don't have those conversations right at the beginning, so you build that rapport and that trust and that understanding, then you're setting yourself and you're setting your potential customer up for failure and potentially, a disagreement, because the average person doesn't appreciate or may not understand all the affiliated costs to a particular project. And you get caught up in that dream of the fixtures, the toilets, the vanities, the light fixtures, the 12 pitch roof, the crazy windows, and all these things, and you spiral out of control to the point where all of a sudden really exceeded your budget, and it's very deflating for a potential someone that's doing a potential customer that wants to have a project done. And I see it as our job, sort of give some guidance through that process. Keep them within keep the bowling ball between the gutters and keep them going straight so that they hit the pins at the end without trying and never getting there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, great analogy. Nothing better than hitting a strike, right?
Yep.
Getting the consumer what they want. I mean, that's like you talked about the psychological component, right? Making somebody super happy with the space that they have. Maybe they live in a really nice area and they want to stay there. Being able to transform that space for them, all the way to maybe somebody who's looking for a little bit something on a larger scale. You start seeing these kind of newer modern homes pop up in these neighborhoods, and they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Getting into some of that custom work. And I guess that must be kind of pretty interesting for you guys, that it's never the same, because the jobs are so different, because people have different tastes in creating with, within a space, whether I'd be at a kitchen, a complete basement renovation, all the way to maybe even something on the outside of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Every job is different, whether you're, like you mentioned, whether it's a basement, apartment, or extra rooms for the growing family, or taking the roof off a bungalow and turning the house into a second story, which is not uncommon for us to do now because of the way the market is, right?
Right.
People wanting to stay in the neighborhood, people wanting their kids to stay in the same school, the cost affiliated with selling a house and buying something else, and they just so yeah, there's some really cool stuff. Yes, you also have to have that real conversation with potential customers and say what you're wanting to do isn't feasible. It can't be done, or it doesn't make sense to do it. And again, I go back to the role of a good salesperson or a good business owner is to have the courage and the knowledge to have those tough conversations right off the get-go.
Yeah, totally. Especially somebody newer, they'll just take any business for the sake of getting it, whether it's stems from a financial situation or a newer business looking to try to grow. And it's not until you get into your later years that you realize, well, I want to work with the people that want to work with us, good people first, good business second, and making sure that, we're kind of aligned. It's almost like it's like a little mini partnership when you have with a customer. It's a two-way street. Communication levels need to be there, and the same, values and morals need to align, or else, you'll do a fantastic job for them. But if they have this crazy expectation, well, then it blows back on you. You didn't do anything wrong. You actually did a great job. They're just coming from left center field, right?
That's right. That's correct. And especially when you get into a custom home, which, the actual construction may take 6 or 7 months, but the lead up is another 6 or 7 months in the design process. So you're building a relationship with this client that's going to last quite a long time. It's not like purchasing a vehicle where you're in the dealership on one Saturday and you're signing the papers on Wednesday and you're done. I mean, this is a long-term relationship that you need to forge with a potential customer.
Yeah, no, 100%. Not a lot of people think about that either, right? And unless are actually articulating, like you just did, that's a long time. Communication levels need to be there with the client, and the client also needs to reciprocate that communication as well, too, right? Because you're in their home.
Communication is one of the biggest things that you need to have great control on, and we think we're good at it. I mean, we have a lot of correspondence, project status updates. We have a management tool through our the phones where we communicate with the customer on a daily basis. And I think one of the biggest things people need to realize, or contractors need to realize, is that most conflict comes from a perception of lack of communication. Whether it's going back to, well, you didn't tell me that at the beginning. You didn't tell me it was going to be $1 million when I only had $500,000, or you didn't tell me it was going to take 6 months. I thought it was 3 months, or you didn't, and it's the communication aspect of this. That's probably one of the most important tools or things we need to do to make everything successful.
Tell me a little bit about all those plaques you got behind you there. I see there's one with like a mallet on it. You a former judge, or?
No, that mallet, that gavel was, I served as the president of the Ontario Home Builders Association back in 2010, 2011, which was a great ride. It was a year basically off work, you know, lots of meetings in Queen's Park. So yeah, a lot of those awards are from the Ontario Home Builders Association, some from our local. I served as a local president of our Home Builders Association for 3 years, and done a lot of humanitarian work and charitable work outside the country and in our own city. So yeah, I like to show them off, and why not?
100%. Well, I've come across enough people in my young age to recognize that, you know, people who hold these types of positions, people who do the humanitarian work, volunteer their time, just generally speaking, they're really good human beings. And so really excited to dive into a little bit more on the personal side with you. So why don't we get into that? Everybody's got a bit of a journey on how they get to where they are. You touched a little bit on it. I'd like to know a little bit more, and I'm sure listeners do as well. But tell us about your journey. How and why did you get into doing what you're doing today?
So I started with Gregor Homes at a young age in the early 90s. I was hired as basically a general laborer, landscaper, outdoor carpenter, and I just worked hard. And I guess my passion for the residential construction industry shone through, and the founders of the business, when they were preparing for their retirement, saw fit to ask me to take over the business and buy it from them. And we, to some degree, turned it into a family business. My daughter worked for us for some time. My son worked for us for some time, and my wife's still very involved in the business. So here we are today. We're not a subdivision builder; we're a custom home builder. And you're right. You know, the humanitarian part of it is actually more fun than working for a living. Not a great sales technique to say, "Hi, I'm James Bazely. I'm a good guy." You really, you got to prove it to people.
Yeah, no, especially in the world that we live in today, you know, it's upside down. There's a lot of societal issues that are going on. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why Jeff and I wanted to put this show together, trying to connect humans on a human level in a bit more of a special way. The more that people can get to know their neighbors around here where we live locally, we think that can do some goodwill. And knowing that when you come across, hey, I listen to your podcast, they already know your business is already legitimized. They already know you're a good guy. It just makes for way more of a easier transition into a great conversation.
Absolutely.
So what was the passion that you had? You said you developed this passion for doing home renovations, custom home building. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, you know, you're not manufacturing widgets. You're not doing, for lack of better terms, I don't want to be mean, but it's not a mundane job, and it comes with a lot of responsibility because you're playing with a lot of money. Typically, when you're into a custom home or a renovation or addition of any kind, it's not chump change. So your customer really has to put a lot of faith in you, and we take great pride in, you know, taking an idea through the process and handing over keys to a finished product. And you know, that's always given me a great kick in life because let's face it, one's home is probably one of the largest investments someone will ever make, and it's enduring for us to know that someone's going to trust you with that investment and make their dreams a reality. Give them and their families, extended families, children, all those things, a great place to live in a functional home or space in the home to utilize. So taking, you know, skids of lumber and skids of shingles and skids of tile and all those things and turning it into someone's dream and ultimate lifetime investment does give me a kick. Yeah, I like it.
You know, James, I can totally relate to that for what Jeff and I do and what I've done for for a long time and truly helping people. I was at a conference last year and had somebody come up there and talk about their father before them, how they were in our organization, told a story. And the story was a gentleman. This is a little bit more before my time, but back in the 80s, was at an airport, was a business owner, struggling with their business. And he went and grabbed a beer at the bar, and he had this other gentleman who came down, and obviously the clothes a lot more distinctive back in the day. Clearly the guy was in, some type of sales marketing. He grabbed a whiskey and he sat down next to this guy's, father, and they just kind of had a human connection, conversation, and that person gave him some free advice. And he took that advice to heart and he implemented that advice, actually saved his business, allowed his son to have a better life, and now has joined our organization and is flourishing, and all stemming from, that one, handful piece of advice from that individual. The power that we both hold in our businesses, being able to transform a space, help somebody with their investment, that goes a long way. To really truly making a difference in somebody's life. I get a kick getting out of bed for helping other people as well too. So I can totally relate to what you're saying there. Are there any myths, any misconceptions in your world out there?
Yeah, lots of them.
I could just see the hamster wheel going on your side.
I don't place blame with anyone, but and I don't know if you know, but every new home builder in Ontario has to be licensed, and through the Ontario Warranty Corporation, which is overseen at an arm's length by the provincial government. And so we all have to follow rules. We all have to put deposits up. We have to, provide the warranty or risk losing your license ultimately. And unfortunately, the average consumer many consumers don't know about that. And therefore, there's a tendency for consumers to hire people that aren't licensed to do what they're doing. And it's a huge problem in our industry. That's part A. Part B is that there is no regulatory body for the renovation and addition type work that we do. So, I call them chucking a truck. Any truck with a truck can become a contractor, and people put their trust into these people, assuming they have, WSIB, assuming they have liability insurance, assuming they can actually fulfill the contractual obligations that they signed up for, if there is a contract, and many times there's not. So, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great contractors that I know in the province, but unfortunately, there's a lot of fly-by-night contractors that tend to, feed on the vulnerable, feed on the people, they feed on people's ignorance, and it's a huge disconnect in our industry. So I'm not sure if I answered the question or not. Did I just go off on a tangent talking about what I want to talk about? I don't know.
No, I mean, like, it is definitely a misconception, I would call that, where I think generally people have an awareness, because I've been in enough social circles to hear people talk about it. And again, that's another reason what we try to embody on the show is finding good businesses. Number one, good people first, then good business second, and then having them on our show so that they can tell their story, so we can talk about this stuff. Like, it wasn't until I had my conversation with Teresa McLennan from the Barrie Women's and Children's Shelter that there's an epidemic in our city with human trafficking. Nobody knows about it, but we should be talking about it and educate and inform, is her show on Rogers TV. And talking about what we're talking about to educate people, that's important to know. I didn't know that there was this, certification that needs to be held for a new home builder. People should know about that kind of stuff. So really glad that you brought that to light.
Yeah. So it's a constant, one of those constant battles, and it's it's great that we have the licensing process, and it's bad that it's not communicated well to the average consumer. And then within the other part of the business, the renovations, additions, it's still a bit of a Wild West. I've seen some hideous, horrendous things. I've seen some hideous, horrendous attempts at a contract that covers nobody for anything. I've seen some jobs half done and the money spent. I've seen a lot in my day, and if I was to send any one message out to someone looking to have something done, I'm not saying hire me. What I am saying is do your research. If it's a new home, go on the Terrion website, check out the builder, check out what their score is, and if you're hiring someone to do a renovation or addition that doesn't fall under the Terrion guidelines, then get referrals. Spend a little bit more time protecting yourself and finding out about the contractor you're hiring, the longevity, how long they've been in business. It's really easy for these guys to buy a nice shiny truck with big nice logos on and show up, and they think, well, it's a new truck, the guy must be doing well. Well, that's not always the case. So that's my warning to heed.
Well, very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sure that'll go a long way with a lot of people. Like you said, right, where it's a lot of money that contractors play around with, and making sure that not only is the job done right, but everybody is covered, because there is a lot of money that's involved to protect everybody. And then once it's all done correctly, the end product is typically pretty awesome,
Right.
pretty special.
Exactly.
Okay, so I love asking this question because I'm a type of guy that likes to have fun. I don't know if I've given you those vibes, James, other than forgetting to hit the recording button 10 minutes into our original conversation. But, there's a harmony, I like to call it. I picked this up from my partner because of balance. We work a little bit more than we do not. And so having a harmony between the two is certainly important. It's important for a lot of different reasons. Keeping yourself sane. Work is fun, especially when we're passionate about it. It doesn't really feel a lot like work. But outside of that, there's a lot that the world has to offer. And so I'm curious, James, to ask you, when you're not working on your business or in your business, when you leave those four walls that you're sitting in, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, it's not overly exciting to most people. So I'm grandfather of 3 boys under the age of 4 years old.
Oh,
One set of twins. So that's really my wife's passion at the moment is being around those kids, because such a great age, and they live in Barrie, live close by, so we're fortunate enough to spend time with that. So we spend a lot of time doing that. We own a cottage in Northern Ontario that is basically off the grid, and so it's a great place to go and work hard, chop wood, build things. So that's our place of relaxation. And you go up there and you can take 3 or 4 deep breaths and feel that you're in a different place, and gives you time to revitalize. And the other thing that I spend a lot of time on is, and we've touched on it, is the humanitarian work. I sit on a board of directors for a charity called Builders for Change. And over the years, we've done a lot of things abroad, Dominican Republic, but I've also been involved in a lot of humanitarian efforts in the city of Barrie and Simcoe County. So if I have spare time, I try and get involved in things like that.
Very honorable. Commend you for those things. I was just in the Dominican Republic and had the chance to see, from the bus ride to the airport to the resort, the state of that country. So I wasn't aware until you brought it to the forefront, because I heard, there's other builders that aren't from here that'll come in here and help out, build special buildings, something that the province or the country needs, that type of thing. And then now I'm talking to one, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, spend a lot of time down there. I also went twice to Puerto Rico after the hurricane hit, and with a team from Barrie, and we helped basically put roofs back on. Flying into Puerto Rico after the hurricane, all you saw was an island of blue tarps, and almost every roof was gone. And so not only did we go down and put the roofs back on, but we brought some Canadian engineering with us down and showed them how to actually put a roof on that can withstand some hurricane force winds. So that was very interesting to do.
Yeah, hurricane ties and all that. I know a little bit about that. I got a best friend that him and his dad own Florida construction. So just through little conversations here, there you get to pick up a couple of things from that perspective. I love what you said about being off grid. I am a big time off grid kind of guy. Love camping, love backcountry camping. If I can go anywhere where I don't have a cell phone signal, I'd like to only use my phone to take pictures, ideally. And it's a dream of mine. Hopefully I'll be able to get there in the next 2 years to buy a piece of land. I wasn't one of those fortunate people that were able to say, yeah, I had a grandfather from the 50s that built this by hand from scratch, and not that fortunate from that perspective. But I want to be that guy for two generations down that they said, yeah, my grandfather bought this piece of land, built it, and now it's in our family for generations to come. Certainly not shy for chopping wood, doing all that work, having a good campfire, sitting around my favorite people, having good conversations, maybe a drink or two, all of that fun stuff. Big fishing guy. My dad taught me how to fish. So we're big into that. We're going to do that this weekend, heading up to my girlfriend's parents' place. They're about an hour and a half north of Sudbury. They've been camping on Crown land in the same spot for like 25 years. So we're going to go up there. You could fit about 8 campers on there. Julie and I are going to tent it. And then it's on a man-made lake. And it's got a lot of pickerel in there, which is one of our favorite fish to fish for. But I will say this, they have a funny saying when it comes to that lake, because it is man-made. There's a lot of underwater trees that are sticking up, and we do a lot of donating to that lake.
Yeah, I hear you.
And last year, my significant other donated one of my fishing rods to the lake as well too. So that was pretty funny. She felt absolutely terrible. I had a chuckle. Love that fishing rod, but hey, nothing better than donating something to something. You feel good about it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, phenomenal stuff. Maybe we'll switch gears a little bit on this one. In life, we do our best to pick a path. That's the path that we think is ideal for us based on who we are, our goals, what do we want to achieve in life. And then we start walking down that path. And then sometimes life kind of gets in the way, where it'll push or pull us in a different direction. Sometimes it turns us right around, or it'll put big obstacles in front of us that we have to overcome. And I've been really fascinated by human beings and our ability to be able to overcome certain life challenges, even the traumatic ones, find silver linings, have the right mindset. I just had somebody who had on my last show before you, stage 4 breast cancer, the way that they view life, how they've overcome that, but the silver linings that have come through that, even for her children now as well too, and how they handle life, not giving up, that type of thing. So I'm curious to ask you, James, if you've ever experienced a hardship in your life, a life challenge that you've overcame, maybe you've overcome that, maybe some silver linings from that.
Yeah, and you prefaced me with these questions, and I looked at them, and I wasn't going to go down this road, but you've sort of touched on it. So I mentioned this was a family business. I've mentioned a lot of humanitarian work done in Dominican Republic, and the reason we ended up in Dominican Republic is my daughter went down there as a high school student on a program, and she would come back and say to me and my colleagues, you guys can build houses here for the regional cancer center in 3D. You can do all these fantastic. Imagine what you could do in Dominican Republic, such an impoverished place. So, the long story, the short, it's a long story short, but that's how we came to get into the humanitarian work in the Dominican Republic. Unfortunately, my daughter, who was working with us in the business after she came back from the Dominican, passed away 3 years ago, and at the age of 32 from cancer. So, devastating, as you can imagine, but it's inspired both my wife and I to continue with her legacy of the humanitarian work and her dream of housing and education for the impoverished youngsters of the Dominican. So that'd be the best example I can give you of a hardship that we went through, but turned it into a positive.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Definitely one of the, if not the most difficult life challenge I would probably say there. Mindset's a big thing when it comes to life in general. Trying to find the positives where you can as human beings, and some silver linings from that. Continuing to do the good work, to do it on her behalf as well too, to try to make the world a better place. Haven't come across many guests on the show that embody that as much as you, and so really wanted to commend you for not only what you've done, but what you're also going to continue to do. And we're really happy to be able to utilize our platform to have you on the show to tell your message. Because I think to invoke change, we need to inform and educate people and spread that message so that we can continue to make the world a better place. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Well said.
What's one thing that you wish our listeners knew about your business, James?
Well, I guess it's the longevity, the experience, the history. You know, like I said, we've been around since the early 80s, and we're not going anywhere very soon. So I would say we're not the cheapest, least expensive company around, but we have a system, we have staff, we have systems in place and the staff in place to do the job properly, and we have the means to warranty and service our customers after the fact. So you know, I always compare our business in certain to the automotive business, right? If you're going to buy a $10,000 car, then that car's going to last X amount of years and probably be built with less expensive or substandard components, as opposed to a high-end vehicle that's going to have an excellent warranty and not a lot of need for service. So that would be, you know, I guess, you know, I could say this, but proof is in the pudding. We're an honest company, and we take care of our consumer, our customer, and that's why we're still in business today.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier. You're not a fly-by-night company. You've been around for a long time, and for businesses to be around for a long time, they have to be doing a couple of things right at the minimum in order to be kind of sticking around. And it seems like from our conversation here today, there's a lot of really good things that you guys do, and the leader of that business as well too. For those who are watching this on video, there's, you know, at least 10 plaques behind this man. So thank you very much for coming on, sharing your story with us. Truly great to get to know you, and really looking forward to potentially doing this down the line.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean.
Lastly, before I go, I don't want to forget this. For those who are interested in wanting to maybe learn a little bit more or to get into touch with you, what would be one of the best ways that they can do that?
I always encourage people to go to the website. All our contact information is there. Check it out. Scroll through it. Our phone number is there if you want to call the office. But I always encourage people to go to our website first, see what we're about.
And what is the website?
www.gregorhomes.com. GREGORHOMES.com.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com, or call 705-413-3775.